Speaker of the day. A reminder to get your evaluations turned in. It's very beneficial to us to make sure we know what we're doing correct or what we're doing wrong, and want to make sure that we continue to run this and run it in a fine fashion that people learn things and enjoy. And so any help there is greatly appreciated. Our next speaker. Now, before I introduce Coach Miller, if there's anyone that needs to leave for a track meet, I know there's some people that maybe leave for a track meet, or if there's some schools that are going to have to bump out maybe at 1:30 or something, just for the sake of the speaker, if you could sit more towards the back, that'd be greatly appreciated as well. So anyway, our next speaker, Coach Jim Miller, legendary wrestling coach from Wartburg College. As a college athlete, Miller was a two-time NCAA champion. Coach Miller's list of accomplishments are long. I started to write down some of his accomplishments. And when he was out here talking to me for a little bit beforehand, I said, there's no way I can list and read all the All-Americans that he has coached. His dual meet record, unbelievable. Conference championships, 20-some in a row. National championships, 5 of the last 6 years, his last few years of coaching. National Coach of the Year, over and over again. More importantly, I can tell you this. I've watched Coach Miller coach over the years. I've seen him work with young people. I know some of the wrestlers that he's coached over the years and how they have become fine young men in society. Doctors, lawyers. Unbelievable what he does with kids and how good he is. Listen to him. He will speak with some great wisdom to you. We're proud to have Coach Miller here. Please make him feel welcomed.
Appreciate it, bro. You hear me? Yeah. Okay. The last speaker. But I'm going to tell you, I'm fired up to be here. Youth and leadership. Both of those are real important to me. I've coached for 37 years. 7 at the high school level, 8 at the Division I level, and 22, my last 22 at Wartburg, Division III. So today I hope you embrace some of the things that you've heard. I hope you take it back with you. And because you all have ability to influence others. I found out that I have the ability to influence others. I didn't know that when I started coaching. Good or bad, positive or negative. I found out my only real choice I have is how I influence. You know, I made mistakes along the way and everything. I don't know all the answers, but I do know this. I have control of my actions. I have control of my words and how I lead my life. Think about that. Actions, words, how you lead your life. These are all very powerful examples of what you stand for, what I stand for, how others perceive me, how they see me, and all of you have the exact same choices and opportunities. Your actions, your words, how you lead your life, how others see you. You will influence others and have been. Your only choice is how. How will you influence? You know, people, usually we talk about my years at Wartburg. We won 10 national titles and so forth. But I want you to know, when I got to Wartburg, we weren't very good in my sport. We had not won a conference championship in 15 years. Wartburg had not won a national championship in anything. We didn't even talk about winning national championships at that time. But all the things that we have won since have been great. But I want to go back to the beginning. Because sometimes we're not great at stuff at the beginning. You might really want to be good at something, but right now you might not have achieved that yet. When I got to Wartburg, you know, in college wrestling, you want maybe 25, 30 athletes 35 athletes on your team. I was hoping 25 would show up at the first meeting. 14 showed up. After the meeting, 6 quit. That was my start. I had 8 athletes and 10 weight classes. So don't think I wasn't thinking, what have I got myself into? Obviously, my vision wasn't shared by the athletes at that time. But no matter what endeavor you undertake, if it's hard, if it's challenging, you're going to have doubters, and we did. But as the leader, you can't be one of the doubters. You got to be the leader. I needed to lead and set the best example I could. Because I sincerely felt that just because we weren't very good at that particular moment didn't mean we couldn't be in the near future. Fortunately, I had some things that had already happened in my life that had kind of prepared me not to lose sight of what could happen. And I like to think that way. What could happen? What's possible? I thought we could win a national championship. See, I was pretty lucky. I had a strong foundation with my family and things that had happened in my earlier coaching stops before Wartburg. This is where my foundation started. A little house in Waterloo, Iowa. 6 kids, mom and dad. We grew up poor. My parents slept on a full-up couch in the living room for the first 15 years of my life. I didn't have my own bed until I was 12. But I found out I was not unlucky. Actually, I was very fortunate because there was some very powerful life lessons that I learned in that home. Number one, I learned to fail. I learned to fail often. I was the youngest of those 6 kids. And with 5 older brothers and sisters, I rarely wanted anything. Some of you might know what I'm talking about if you're one of the youngest ones. But I did learn if I wanted success, I better get up and try again. I failed often. I tried again often. And that habit of keep trying, even in disappointment, has led to any and all the success I had as a coach in my life. So what I'm saying, please don't be afraid to fail. The student athletes that I've had that had this trait of not giving up have always been our best examples and our best leaders on all our championship teams. Second thing I want to share I learned in that home is I learned every job was valued. Every job was an opportunity to improve yourself and to prove yourself. There was no job I was too good for. I had a paper route starting in 6th grade for 3 years, 72 papers. High school, I sacked groceries, sophomore, junior, and senior year in high school. And then when I was similar age to many of you in here. I was 18 years old. I was a young person for my class, but I was 18 and I was a freshman in college at UNI. And it was March, and I was flat broke. And there was 2 months more to go before summer break, where I thought, man, I can earn some money in summer break, but it's 2 months to go before that. My brother called me up. One of my brothers called and said, hey, Jimmy, get down to John Deere. They're hiring. I said, well, I'm going to college. He goes, you can work 2nd or 3rd shift. I'm like, wow. So I went down there. I talked to some people that were hiring. They asked me some questions. Can you run a machine, Jim? I go, no, never did that before. Have you ever welded? Never did that. Have you ever ran a forklift? No. Well, I got one job maybe you could do. Shoveling sand in the John Deere foundry. I took the job. Now that's the new foundry. The old foundry was a little worse, but shoveling sand in the foundry, I found a new level of misery 8 hours. You had to wear earplugs because I was in between machines. These machines banging over here, machines banging over here. And I said, why is there even sand inside the foundry? But there's this, what did they call it? The conveyor track, about 3 foot high. And there was 3 places in the foundry I had to go shovel sand. So my job was to put in these earplugs, put on these headphones over the earplugs. I had steel-plated shoes up to here. And the only good thing was it was so nasty back there, the foreman would never come back there. He had a white shirt on. He would never come back there. But I'd go over here and I'd shovel sand to make sure that sand wouldn't block that track. Because if the sand got up too high, you couldn't get parts anywhere in the foundry. So I'd go one place, there was 3 places. Then I'd go over here and I'd shovel the sand out. Then I'd go over here and shovel the sand out. And about that time, I had to get back over to this one. So that's how it went. 8 hours of shoveling sand. After a few weeks, I went home because my parents, I was living at UNI. And I went home to Waterloo, that little house, and I was telling my dad how terrible this job was, how miserable I was in this job. And he listened for a while, and he said, son, have you ever thought about being the best sand shoveler John Deere ever had in the foundry? Why don't you be that guy the foreman misses the most when you're gone? Man, that thought had never crossed my mind. He said, listen, you needed a job, right? Yeah. They gave you one. Now take some pride in your work when you go back. And I'm going to tell you something. It was still real dirty. It was still noisy, hot, hard job, but I had a different perspective. I was going to try to be the best sand shoveler John Deere ever had. And before that summer was over, I had numerous opportunities for a better job at John Deere. Someone who could take pride and work hard every day shoveling sand, I found out, is someone they wanted to keep and give better opportunities to. So those 4 months of sand shoveling actually end up being a blessing in my life. But when I had the choice, I eagerly went back to college. Yeah, I was probably one of the most happy people at UNI when we started classes that year. But in my wrestling part as a freshman, I had been about 500 record. I had not tried to be the best guy I had in the country. I wasn't thinking in those terms. But my sophomore year, I got 4th in the nation. And my junior and senior years, I won the national championship. I had a different thought process. So, on the surface, some things in your life right now may not seem great at the time, but do your best anyway. Do your best anyway. Matter of fact, make doing your best just a part of who you are. That's leadership. Whatever the task at hand, because you know what? That habit will lead to so much success in your future, no matter what area you pursue, no matter what you want to do. That is a very high and respected leadership trait. Doing your best, even if you don't feel like it or want to. Because I'm going to tell you something. Everybody wants that person on their team. Whether it's an athletic team, music, a job. Trust me. That's who I'm looking for. After college, I started coaching. And here's where I really learned a lot about life and leadership. And I learned the most from people I least expected to learn from. My students. people your age. And those lessons, like I said, I coached for 37 years. Those lessons never stopped for 37 years. But I'm going to share just a couple in the early days because these impacted my whole career. Because when I was 24 years old, I got my first coaching job, my first head coaching job, Charles City High School. Anybody from Charles City? Charles City High School. I was driver ed teacher and head wrestling coach. Man, I could probably write a book on the driver ed part too. But I was fired up, man. I wanted to know, I knew the former coach too, and I said, hey, I'm going to call this coach and find out who the key kids are. And I did. I said, hey, coach, man, I just got the job at Charles City. Who's the key kids? Who's the captains? Who's state qualifiers? He said, coach, settle down, man. Settle down. I tell you what, I will leave you a note in your mailbox. And when you start your in-service day, which wasn't very far away, it was in July when I got the job, I'll leave that note in your mailbox. I said, all right, man, okay. And so, first day in service, I don't know where anything is. I'm going to ask the second, hey, where's the mailboxes? Where's the mailboxes? Oh, they're over there. Okay. I go over here. I get in my mailbox, open it, here's my thing, and I read the former coach's note. Note was, I wish I'd have kept it, but I know exactly what it said. Coach said, Coach Miller, make sure you let Brad Peterson be the wrestling manager. Good luck. So I'm saying, wrestling manager? Who's the key kids? Who's Brad Peterson? Well, the first day of school, Brad Peterson rolled up to me, and I was eating lunch. He goes, you're Coach Miller, right? I go, yeah. I'm Brad Peterson. I want to be wrestling manager. Brad had a neuromuscular disease. His kind of body was a little deformed. He was in this wheelchair, and with his right hand, he had this stick, and he can move the wheelchair and, all that stuff. He can maneuver the wheelchair. And so I said, yeah, you can be wrestling manager. He said, oh, that's great. And off he goes. Off goes Brad. He goes peeling off. And that night, when I went home, I'm thinking, what am I going to do with this young man in a wheelchair in a wrestling room? Bodies flying all over the place. Our wrestling room wasn't even handicap accessible. There's 7, 8 steps to get up to the wrestling room. So the next day, I seen Brad at lunch. I kind of hailed him, hey, Brad, man. So you were wrestling manager last year, right? Because I remember that note the coach left me. He goes, yeah, coach. I was wrestling manager. I go, what'd you do? And he looked at me, kind of had a sparkle in his eye, and he goes, Coach, I ran practice. I blew the whistle. I go, okay, man, we got this. Okay, I got it. And so when wrestling started, guys would pick up the wheelchair and Brad carry him up the steps and back down afterward every day. And so that first day, we had a clock in our wrestling room with a second hand. So this is going to work out all right. I got a string with a whistle on, and I put it around Brad's neck. He got the whistle, and I go, okay, we're going to go 30-second goes. 30-second goes mean you start wrestling, and then 30 seconds later you stop. And then there's a break, and you do it again. Start, stop, start, stop. So I said, Brad, you ready to go? And he goes, yeah, coach, I'm ready to go. So I go, okay, here we go. And I just look at Brad. He blew the whistle. And 30 seconds later, he'd blow the whistle again, stop. And I think this is going pretty good. But after a while, I noticed Brad didn't have enough air to keep blowing a whistle all the time. Sometimes he just couldn't get it out. He just couldn't blow the whistle. So I stood by him. I go, time, if he couldn't get it out. And his mom told me, he said, Coach, When Brad blows the whistle in practice, he comes home, he's totally exhausted. But please keep letting him do it because he loves it. And I say, hey, we love it too. We do. We love it too. Because you know what? We found a new definition of what hard work was. Coach Miller found at a young age a new definition of leadership. Because what he had to go through the day just to get through the day made wrestling practice seem pretty darn easy. Now that spring after wrestling season, sometime in April, I got the call that Brad passed away. And that was hard because, Brad Peterson was like a rock star in our school. He was like a rock star in our school. And it's kind of funny. At his funeral, which is one of the biggest funerals I've still ever attended, at his funeral, I thought of two things. One is, I'm thinking, man, you know what? I've talked to this kid almost every day for 7 straight months. That's as long as I knew Brad, for 7 months. And I never heard him ever complain about anything. Never heard him complain about anything. And number 2, I thought back about that note that coach left me. It then finally hit me. Remember, I asked him, who's the key kids? And he listed one. And he was right. He was right. See, I didn't know at the time in my life that the weakest kid among us could be the strongest leader we had. I didn't know that. A kid in a wheelchair hardly blow the whistle set the best example of anybody on our team about hard work and doing extra things and living your dream. Because his dream, I want to be a member of a wrestling team. That was his dream. And I really didn't value each and every person. I didn't know that every person had that much, could contribute that much value if they couldn't win matches. At that time in my life, I didn't get that. But Brad had the ability to lead without saying a word. Ability to lead without saying a word. You know anybody, have you had a Brad Peterson in your life yet? Doesn't have to be somebody in a wheelchair. I'm talking about somebody that you least expect that would positively impact your life in a big way. If you haven't, be open to it. Be open to it. Because since that time, there's been so many athletes, so many others that have been we brought into our program that maybe some of our biggest fans, sometimes maybe our athletic trainer, to our maintenance, people that are doing our mats, our secretary, everybody has contributed to our success. Kind of funny, all the hundreds of athletes I've had in 37 years of coaching, I talk about that guy the most. That same year, I had people saying, Coach Miller, you got to come down and check out our 7th grade class in wrestling, our 7th grade wrestling team. I'm like, cool. So I went down there, and there's about 15 7th graders. And man, we had 7 or 8 that looked real good. I'm like, man, we're going to be good. I can't wait till these guys get into high school. They were athletic, looked strong, they had high-level technique for 7th graders. Man, they were undefeated as a team. And then over here in there was also some other kids that weren't as good. And one of them, you could tell he was going to be a heavyweight. He worked hard, but he wasn't as athletic. He was kind of slow of foot. He was kind of chubby. But I'm thinking, man, maybe this kid, he might wrestle for us by the time he's done now. He might make our team, maybe go to state his senior year or something, because he looked like a real hard worker. And I'm going to fast forward 3 years. His sophomore year of this group, he walks in, and this young man all of a sudden didn't look so. He looked real athletic. He had been lifting weights, working. All of a sudden, this young man is the varsity on our team as a sophomore. Sophomore. He's the only one of that whole group that made the varsity his sophomore year. His name was Mark Sindlinger. Now, Mark weighed about 225 pounds, and at that time in high school wrestling, now there's a weight limit. Now there's a weight limit. The most you can weigh in high school wrestling is 285 pounds. Back then, there wasn't a weight limit. You could weigh, it didn't matter what, you could weigh whatever. So anyway, our first tournament we were going to that year, we were going to run into the state runner-up from the year before, and he was a big boy. He was about 320. And Mark's mom, her name was Sharon, comes up to me one day, and I'm a young coach, but she says, "Hey, Coach Miller, could I talk to you?" Man, when you're a coach, that's usually not good. That's usually not good. So I'm like, okay, yeah. And she goes, "Coach, I'm really kind of worried about this weekend because, you know, Mark, he might wrestle this young man, and he's about 100 pounds more than Mark weighs. And I'm really afraid he might get hurt." I'm going, "No, man, no, Sharon, we got this. No, don't worry about it. It'll be all right. I'm not worried about it," and all that. As soon as she left, I went to my assistants, and I go, "Hey, man, you know this guy, he's wrestling about 100 pounds more than him, and I'm really worried about him getting hurt." And we all were. And sure enough, in the finals that first weekend, here he is, this kid about 100 pounds more than Mark, and they both walk out there. I swear to God, I was holding my breath. I was so nervous. I don't care what happens, just don't get hurt. That's what I was thinking. Mark pins him in a minute, the state runner-up. Pins him in a minute. I'm like, I knew it. I told you, don't worry about it. Man, I'm a good coach. I must be a good coach, man. And week after week, he kept beating people. We're like, man, he beat that guy, he beat that. Mark Sindler wins the state championship as a sophomore. He wins the state championship as a junior. And then in between his junior and senior year, he wins the national freestyle championship. Which means going into his senior year, he's the best heavyweight in America. He's best heavyweight in America. That chubby, slow, non-athletic 7th grader. He's the best heavyweight in America. This is Mark after he won his 3rd state championship. Yeah, that's Coach Miller up there. Got a nice mustache, full head of hair. I had a baby blue suit on too that night. Mark's like this, holding me with one arm, and we're walking around like this. And I told him, I said, "Don't jump on me. I will come out and jump you. I'll just jump your way." And that's what we did. And he was also probably the most humble kid in school. All the success he had time for everybody. That's why it makes his story even better. That's why his leadership, without saying a whole lot, was so awesome. But that wasn't the end of the story. Mark was also an unbelievable football player. His junior year, he was first team All-State, and his senior year, he was elite team All-State. That means he was a center. That means he was the best center in the state of Iowa, no matter what class, no matter how big a school. And every home meet we had at Charles City, there was at least one, usually more than one, Iowa football coaches there to watch him wrestle. They did an awesome job recruiting him. And Mark comes up to me early and says, "Hey, Coach, I think I'm going to go to Iowa." I go, yeah. And they did a great job recruiting you and da-da-da. He goes, "But I think I'm going to do both sports." I go, "What are you talking about? Football and wrestling?" "Yeah, I can't choose. I don't know which one I like better." I go, "You can't do that in the Big Ten. Kidding me? Who does that?" People were telling him, "Hey, you probably should pick one." Other people were saying, "Maybe you should think about going to a smaller school. You could do both." Finally, he come up and says, "You know what? I'm going to go to Iowa. I'm going to do both." I go, oh, okay, congratulations. And I walk away. What are you thinking? Mark Sindlinger started 3 years for Coach Fry, Hayden Fry, in football. Went to a bowl game every year, including a Rose Bowl. And then he was also a 2-time All-American wrestler for Coach Dan Gable. Even though you couldn't go out for wrestling until January after the bowl game. Wrestling started in September. How in the world? Who does that? Well, Mark Sindlinger did that. And that hasn't been, I don't think anybody's done that to that level since. But that young man impacted my life because Coach Miller, quit putting limits on your own kids. I'm putting limits on my own. What kind of leadership was that? Putting limits on my own athletes. Fortunately, he thought he could do more than I thought he could do at that time. I also learned to quit picking out too soon. And this is for teachers, coaches, and everybody else. Quit picking out too soon who your best people are going to be. Because just because they might not be real great right now don't mean they're not going to be real great a little bit down the road, especially if they're willing to work at it like he was. See, what I'm saying here is both of these humble young men, Brad Peterson and Mark Sindlinger, leaders come in all shapes and sizes. A big, strong heavyweight to Brad Peterson in a wheelchair that could hardly blow the whistle. And everybody in between. Neither gave excuses, just results. I love this slide. I love this slide because I love this quote. Because for all of us, it cuts to the chase. So many things we encounter in our lives, so many things we want to do good in or think about doing it. Maybe it's academics, and maybe an activity, maybe music, and maybe athletics. Whatever you want to do. Which one? You can't have both. Results or excuses. You can't have both. And if you want good results, excuses will probably not be a part of that scenario. This is my last slide. This becomes personal for me. If not you, who? If not now, when? This is an actual NCAA advertisement that the NCAA was using, but you know what? That's a Wartburg wrestler that they're using in that advertisement. His name was Aaron Wernemont. Aaron Wernemont was a great leader. He was also a 2-time NCAA champion who did everything right. And you know, when you think about that, if not you, who? Think of your own success. Is this your time? Is this your time for success? Or maybe, is this my time to make good life choices? And if it's not now, when is a good time? If this is not a good time, when would be a good time? How far do you kick the can down the road? Because some people just keep kicking the can down the road, and never make the change that they want to see the results they want. If not you, who? If not now, when? Sometimes you just have to make decisions and come to terms with yourself. Think about that. With yourself. Looking in the mirror at yourself. Come to terms with yourself. Lead yourself. If not you, who? I believe leading yourself is the first stop to great leadership. Lead yourself. Make up your mind where you want to go. If not you, who? If not now, when? I'm going to close with this thought. Someone very special in my life gave me some great advice once. Actually, it was a lot more than once. It was my mom. You know, when you're growing up, I kind of took my parents for granted, you know. I know they worked hard for it. You know, you just don't think about it. I know, and I've always known, no one loved me more in life than my mom. No one knew me better in life. No one knew me better. But Mom said, no matter what you end up doing in life, I hope you find what you really want to do in life. But along the way of finding that, be helpful and be humble to others. Be helpful and humble to others. So I say this to you. I hope you find what you want to do in life. Find your passion. Find your passion. Find your passion means to me, what would you do for free? What would you do for free? For me, that was being a wrestling coach. That's all I ever wanted to do. I even ended up getting paid for it. How cool is that? What I would have done for free, I even got paid for it. Find your passion. I hope that happens for you too, doing something you love for your career. But along the way, be helpful and humble. Even if you have great success, be helpful and humble along the way. And you know what? Be that special person that lifts others up instead of tearing others down. You feeling me? Be that special. You know somebody like that? Man, I love that. Be that special person that lifts others up instead of tears others down. That's going on in every school in America. Be that special person. That is a special kind of leadership right there. Lifting others up. Be that, make that who you are. And finally, take the things that hit your heart today. Think about this. You had some great speakers today. What are some things that really hit your heart? You know, maybe it was just like, man, one of those speakers felt like they were talking right to me. Maybe there was something that really hit your heart. Write it down. Write it down. Write down what hit your heart, and maybe multiple things. Write it down and put it where you can see it on a daily basis. Because sometimes you walk out of something, yeah, that was cool, but nothing, you forget. Grab a hold of that thing. Grab a hold and keep a hold. Write it down and put it where you will see it daily. If you do this, I believe you will have a positive life change, and so will your ability to help others have one. A positive life change and the ability, when that happens, you have more of the ability to help others change theirs. Last thing I want to say thank you to the Ed Thomas Leadership Academy. I speak a lot, but I don't know if I speak anywhere where I felt where the organization was trying to do everything they can to make a difference in lives of people, in the lives of our youth. It's awesome, man. I believe they really make a difference. And if you felt they've made a difference. Let's let them hear right now. And thank you for inviting me. I loved it. I love it. I love it. I love what's going on here. And blessings to all you. Okay? Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach Miller. Honor and privilege. Young people, hopefully you understand what you got to listen to, not just from Coach Miller, but I mean, this guy, when you look up wrestling, there's nobody been more successful, okay? Hopefully some speak.